So, I have found myself in a rather unique situation. I have my hands on arguably one of the most well-respected, prestigious automotive subwoofer amplifiers of all time, the Crown A6000 GTI, which, although I do not own, I have the ability to listen and test to my heart's content after completing an extensive repair job. Many will claim this to be one of the most dynamic, cleanest and nicest sounding high power bass amplifiers to have graced the car audio market, with no expense spared and great care put into the preamp stage, output and filter network and high current power supply. Although rated conservatively at 6000 watts RMS into 12.5 volts, it has proven to far exceed this on stressful resistive loads, supplying as much as 12,000 watts RMS before clipping. I also own and run an amplifier whose circuitry often gets compared to that of a welder, alongside claims of dirty power, lackluster low frequency response or smoothness, poor reliability and overall jankiness. The Taramps HD 10000 all but vanishes alongside the sheer stature and bulk of this crown, yet it's rated for almost twice the power at 10,000 watts RMS into 12.6 volts. This is also not specifically designed with a subwoofer application in mind, and it's actually able to supply its power almost full range. This also used to be a donor amp for me to take parts from for other repairs, but I decided to throw it back together with whatever random parts and FETs I had laying around, expecting it to last about a week, but here we are 2 years later and still bumping strong despite being wired down to 0.5 ohms the entire time. And lastly, I happen to own a pair of perhaps the most transparent and accurate high power subwoofers on the market, that being the Digital Design's Z415s. If you haven't already guessed where this is going, I thought it would be a great opportunity to place one of the most respected and one of the most disrespected amplifiers side by side, give them a very unforgiving and revealing subwoofer to drive, and compare the differences in sound, tonality, shape, roundness, smoothness and whatever other terms people use to describe the sound of a sub-amp. Now, the problem with an experiment like this is actually with the way our brains process sound. Our oral memory is incredibly short, and in order for us to distinguish differences between two similar sounds, they must be played one after another with very little time in between. Otherwise, our brain either forgets how the first one sounded, can't tell what was different, or it starts imagining differences that it thinks are there between the two, even if they're not, just because too much time has passed between them. This is why a test like this can't accurately be performed by simply wiring one amplifier up, listening, disconnecting it, wiring the other one up and listening again. Too much time will have passed for us to actually identify small tonality changes or differences in how these two amplifiers sound. So to combat this, I have put together a little box of tricks called the amplifier switcher. It's just a simple set of relays that make and break a connection between two amplifier inputs and one common load output, that being the sub. For my test specifically, it was important not only to switch the positive terminals for the amplifiers, but also to switch the negative terminal for the amplifiers. And that's because the Taramps is a full bridge, so it has a sine wave on both the positive and negative terminal. And it also runs on a floating midpoint on the output terminals with a single rail voltage, whereas the JBL is a half bridge amplifier, so it only has a sine wave on the positive, and it oscillates that sine wave around ground. If any of the output terminals for these two amplifiers saw each other for even a fraction of a second, everything would be on fire. So I took great care in selecting relays that switched at the exact same time and did not rebound between contacts. I'm also aware that Class D amps in particular do not like outputting a signal with no load connected at the speaker terminals, so I added a couple of smaller relays to switch the RCAs so that whichever amp was not driving the load, it would also have its signal disconnected on the RCAs and it would just sit there idling instead. So with the switcher working as intended and connected, excusing the lack of cable management for this very temporary test setup, I whipped out the laptop to adjust the tune on my DSP to suit each amplifier. I originally thought that I'd have to play around with the EQ and crossovers a little bit to negate any preamp slope differences between these amps or calibrate an even frequency response, but to my surprise, between the listening band of 25 to 80 Hz, they were absolutely identical. Getting the gains matched was a little bit tricky since trying to measure AC voltage or scope the Taramps is unreliable due to the unfiltered PWM, but once I'd dialed it in, no further EQ or crossover tweaks were necessary. For the first listen, I'm going to set up an RTA mic alongside me and we can analyse the sound of these amplifiers together. Make sure to wear headphones if you want to try and pick out any differences between these, though remember that what you hear is only your equipment's best representation rather than a real world experience. So you've had the differences with the RTA mic on your setup, but as your setup will colour this, the interesting thing will be if someone else here in person can distinguish the difference between these two amplifiers. So without looking at the switch, I'm just going to spin it around in my hand, not look at it, hold this and switch between the two amplifiers and see if you can tell us which is which.
No clue.
No clue?
Genuinely no clue.
Maybe we're playing it too loud. Maybe if I turn the volume down a bit, you'll be able to hear the tonality or the shape of the amplifiers a bit better. It literally sounds exactly the same.
Yeah.
But are there any sort of like tonality or characteristics or shapes or anything that gives one away more than the other?
Not particularly, no. Those are complete guesses.
Okay, so this is amp number one.
Okay.
So what's amp number one?
Is amp number one JBL?
No, Taramps.
Okay.
So before, amp number one was Taramps, so it might be the same, might be different. So what was number 1 this time? Was it the same? Was it the Taramps or was it the JBL?
I think it was the JBL.
1 was the JBL?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Was there any sound reasons that you thought that, or is it just flipping a coin? Or
Just flipping a coin.
just flipping a coin?
Literally flipping a coin.
See if I can get it.
Okay.
Literally sound exactly the same. I think number 1 might be the JBL.
Nope, Taramps.
Fuck.
This is fun though.
It is good fun. Is that the Taramps now?
This is the JBL.
Oh fuck. Alright, cool. I think it would be quite cool to slam some bass real loud on the JBL.
Yep,
So I do a hair trick, maybe see how it goes, just for fun.
Yeah, this is the first time we use a JBL. But
yeah, this is literally the first time I've used the JBL since repairing it, so I'm quite pleased that it is playing nicely. So this is currently on the JBL. The JBL is 1 and the Taramps is number 0. I mean, the hair trick looks the same between the amps. I couldn't actually hear anything at all when I switched it. It sounded like I wasn't even switching it. Crazy. Alright, cool.
So which amp is which?
Well, I'm not going to tell you.
Right.
So,
Oh, I'm meant it.
yeah, so
Amp number 1
is the one that you prefer.
That's the one that's knocking more.
Nice, nice.
That's the one with the mono. It's like, it's more powerful. It's heavier.
I've spun the switch around a bit, so you haven't got any bias for which number you prefer.
The one that's currently on.
The one that's currently on is your favourite one?
Yeah.
What about the one that's currently on do you prefer the sound of?
It's better because it's deeper. It's constant. There's not much change
Okay.
in the power. Sort of. So this one's my favorite.
This one's your favourite? Let's have a look.
Yeah. This one.
Okay. Right.
So that's changed.
So that's changed now because your favourite was number 1 before.
It was number 1 before, yeah.
And now it's number 0.
Number 0, yeah. Change
I'm going to spin it around again, change it a bunch of times, see what's going on. Okay, and out.
Make them feel like guarantee I kill with my
%?
Yeah,
you prefer one of them?
1000%,
Okay,
yeah.
let's have a look. Is this the one you prefer? It's changed again.
Number 1.
Changed again.
Number 1's definitely my Number 1's definitely my
Cool.
So yeah, difference between the two. Yeah, number 1. I'll pay to buy. I'll buy number 1.
Yeah. I've mixed the switch up again to see if you can tell on this one.
Okay. Right. So that one was a tough one. They're both quite powerful on this track, on the lows. But yeah,
The one that you're currently on is your favourite?
Yeah.
Cool. Number one again. Number one again. Any thoughts?
Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
This one's your favourite?
This one.
Let's have a look. Yes, different again!
What? What?
Got him!
No, man, that's a mistake. That's a mistake.
Try again, this same track?
Yeah. What? Yeah.
The one that's currently on you prefer?
Yeah.
Let's have a look. 0 again.
Yeah.
It's changing.
0. So this is quite even, isn't it?
So you're now kind of half and half.
Half and half, yeah. So that's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, man. You prefer number 1 sometimes, you prefer number 0 sometimes.
Yeah.
Which amp do you think is which?
I think number 0 is the JBL, and I think number 1 is the Taramps.
Number 0 is the Taramps.
Yeah.
0 is the Taramps, number 1 is the JBL.
Strange. Because it's even, isn't it?
It's pretty much even,
from the tests
yeah,
that
it's
we've done.
pretty much 50-50.
So naturally, this is only one test setup, and to draw concrete conclusions, this test would need to be performed again with many different types of enclosures and woofers, but it's safe to say that at least here, my suspicion of all subwoofer amplifiers sounding the same provided you have your filter slope set correctly appears to hold some truth. I really wanted to like the JBL more, as I love and respect the engineering that went into it, the complex circuitry and over-engineering, but at the end of the day, neither I nor others I asked could reliably say which amp they preferred the sound of. As long as the amp is reliable, which for me the HD10K has been more so than my older Koreans, I would say buy the amp with the most dynamic headroom that you can for your money, because the further away from clipping point you are, the better it is for your amp and electrical system. Even if your electrical can't support, say, 8K, that doesn't stop you buying an 8K amp and calibrating it with a multimeter to behave like a 3K or 4K amp, and then you have the extra headroom ready for the inevitable supply or subwoofer upgrades further down the line. Maybe I'll revisit this with a different pair of amps sometime, but for now, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.
Woo! Woo! Man, I can't wait till mine sounds like that. The difference between me and you, I only turned it down when I see police.